Here we are. Today we are going to be talking about mocap layering and advanced curve editor. And when we were devising, the classes for this fellowship, let me just give you a little bit of an intro, right, of this class and what we are supposed, to be getting out of it. And we thought that we have like all the information about Unreal, right? Animation in Unreal is fast and it's everywhere. And we wanted to have like a full, workflow from start to end with everything that you have already learned. You're gonna be seeing that we are going to be talking today about many things that we have talked before, but it's going to be in one continuous workflow. And I think that is going to be an eye opener, right? Because you by now have like many separate different tools that you can use. And now you're going to see it live, how they work together, right? So let's start by simply disappearing. And let's go here, not there, but there. All right. And this is what we are going to be covering today, right? First of all, we're going to be, starting from the assumption that we have an animation that was retargeted outside of Unreal, right? And that is our, starting point, right? From there, we're going to start, checking, the sequence, seeing that everything, be sure that everything is good with it and that we are good to go to work, right? And do, some common troubleshooting with it. Next, we're going to be, cleaning it up, right? First, systemic issues, right? Then we're going to slice it and trim it and, give all of our takes, its own, separate sequence. We're going to be also, fixing it through additive adjustments, all right? And we're going to be using adjustments either from, the actual animation editor or from an for kinematic rig. That should be very familiar to you by now. And then we're going to do a bit of animation blending, right? We're going to be doing trims and overlappings, animations, slots. It's going to be a short demonstration. It may not be something for you to follow around, but I just want to show you all the different ways that you can use your animations and blend them together. And of course, we're going to do a little bit of a recap on bone matching, right? Later on, we're going to be detailing that animation, baking it to its own control rig, and we're going to see the options and workflow from it. We're going to be doing a little bit of layering sections. We're going to be doing layering sections everywhere. So don't you worry about that. And also, baking the animation into animation sequence. That's also a thing that we're going to be constantly doing, right? As you should, on your side. And lastly, we are going to be doing a little bit of talking about the curve editor, right? Some very specific tools that are very good when you're working with Mocap, right? And that's it. And if we have time, in the end, we're going to do more detailing, all right, on that Mocap. So let's get started. So first of all, let's do a little bit of a checkup on what we have in our hands on the side of our content, all right? So let's open up our content, our content browser, right? And from here, you can see that we have here in control rig, we should have, all the control rig's characters, right? And we have here one particular animation, right? And this is one that is called run, stop, turn around, run same direction. This was extracted from the fellowship animation library, right? That software where you can preview a lot of those animations and then extract one from those. So this was captured on a past fellowship, right? And I just pick it up like randomly, and we're going to be doing all the works, all right, on this one right here. So we can start from here and continue, right? So first, let's, take a look at the actual animation and see, how it is working. So the actual tool that we're going to be using is, of course, the animation editor first, right? That should be, the first starting tool that we should be using, all right? So how we can get to that one? Well, that's pretty easy. We just need to come here and double click on either a skeleton, a skeletal mesh, an animation. Each and every one of those, different assets will take you to the same editor, right? And that is what is called either the skeletal mesh editor or the persona editor, right? So let's double click right here on this animation, and that should take us to the actual animation. And we can start, checking out what is wrong with it, what we can, start fixing right over here, right? So let's see the actual list of everything that we can start, checking up right on this animation. So first of all, we're going to see that the first check that you should perform is actually checking that you have your retargeting options, and that is very noticeable in this character. You can see that is a little bit ghoulish. It's like too tall, like you have, it doesn't have the same proportions as the actual queen, right? So these will explicitly tell me that we have some issues with our retargeting post, right? So let's go and fix it. The way that we're going to fix it, we need to have access to the actual skeleton tree tab, and that could be, in many of the different tabs up here. The one that is in our animation tab will be good enough. All we need to do is simply go here where we have all these settings, right? And we're going to show the retargeting options, right? Be sure to click there, and you're going to see that now we're going to have an options, beside each and every one of our bones, right? And the easiest way to fix it, right, is to simply right click on the root, right? And down here, you're going to have the actual recursively set translation retargeting skeleton, right? Everything, it's a bunch of words, right? So I'm going to try to explain it in the lamest terms ever. So the thing that is happening is that we're using translation and rotation, right, from that particular animation. And that means that our character have now the actual proportions of the source of that animation. And what we really want is only to use the rotation. So this, instead of being recursively set translation, it should say use just rotation, not translation or scale, right? Once we click there, we're going to see that the actual proportions are fixed, but now we have a little bit of other issues, right? She's walking on the same spot. That means that we do need, to have a little bit of translation, right? And that is going to happen just either in our root, right? I'm going to set this one to animation, and the actual pelvis, because we want the actual bouncing up and down, on side to side of the pelvis. We also need to have the actual translation, right? Even if it says here, animation, this should say, yeah, use rotation and translation, right? And that's it. Now we can see that the ghoulish proportions of our character now are fixed. We have our very well proportioned queen working, and this is done, right? This is something that you're going to fix once, right, from your skeleton, and yeah, it's going to be fixed. These fix most issues, but will give you issues, at the same time, because, things like actual contacts and interpenetration might start happening. And that will depend a lot, on the actual, difference in proportions from the original character and this character that is receiving the retarget animation. Cool. Now, let's continue. The second thing is, of course, and this might look like very, yeah, why? But it's really important, like actually checking the length of your animation, not only in frames, but also in time. Sometimes, even though Unreal doesn't have any issues with transforming the actual frame rate of animation, because Unreal Engine is this beast that loves to run as fast as it can. So even if you have like a 30 or 60 FPS animation, or sorry, the other way around, if you have like a 24 frame rate animation into a 60 animation, it will simply interpolate between, the missing frame. So you won't even notice, right? But if you have time issues, that it's something that might happen, even though Unreal won't show you a choppy scene, You might have speed issues, right? So be sure that you are playing your animation at, at speed 1, and you have a good, speed of your animation, and that it feels natural. And if in your capture log, you have the actual length of your animation, you can calculate it, right? And see, if you have everything that you need, right? Before you start cutting and sliding and making, progress into your animation. So you don't lose, time. That is important, right? Next thing is, of course, we need to check that the LODs are working. This, believe it or not, has been an issue in the past. So let me show you what I mean by that. If we return here and we actually check our character, this mannequin has several different LODs. We have like LOD 0 and LOD 1 and 2, right? Even though this is the simple one, I believe, if I go to my previous scene, yeah, this one is the simple. You can even, if you go to character and you check your bones and you select all hierarchy, you should be able to see that if you change your LODs to 2, maybe this is not the case. Let me show you how that will happen on another character. Let me load very quickly. Go to character, mannequins, mesh, and let me load up the complex one, not the simple, but the normal character. If you check out the actual different LODs, you're going to see that some bones are going to start disappearing. And this might be an issue depending on if you on who created, the actual LODs. Sometimes you're going to have an actual animation on a bone that maybe at a distance will disappear. And that might, prompt like an issue with, with your animation. Maybe fingers are going to start, laying around and all about. So yeah, be sure, to check out your animation while, checking all the different LODs. Believe it or not, it's a thing that had happened in the past, right? So next thing, of course, we need to check everything on our context, right? And interpenetration that might happen from a wrong retargeting pose, right? So for that one, you can also check it right here, but these might be deceiving you, right? And that is because if you go up here to our view options, you can see that we have an auto align floor to mesh. Look at that. So let's turn that off. And now we should see the actual, distance between, our contact from our feeds to the actual animation. And we can see that we are a little bit low, right? But this is like the only way of truly seeing, right, that you are not having, an alignment like this, right? That might be lying to you. This will flush, the actual floor height would be at 0, and it's not going to be changing that floor position, right? So be sure to turn that off. Cool. Let's check what else. And also we can check for root motion issues, right? And let's come here and see that this particular character has root motion issues. Let me show you how a true root motion works, right? So you can then see if you have or not. And this might not be like crucial, but it will affect things like the actual matching bones options to match bones between your animations. Because if the root is not the one driving the animation, but the hip, you might have, some issues. And that happens a lot when you're retargeting from characters that doesn't have a root bone, right? So yeah, exactly, like the Mixamo animations, exactly, just like that. So let's go here to these mocap basics, and I'm going animation, and I'm going mobility pro root motion, and I'm going to open any. There is one that is pretty long, that is the walk, relax, something like that. It's all right, any will do. Let me grab this jog one, and you're gonna see. So this is a healthy root motion animation. You can see that the actual pelvis, the only thing that it does is doing the bouncing up and down, right? Or, the orientation of it, right? If needed. but the actual bone that carries on the actual locomotive mobility of the character is the actual root bone. Even if it seems like it's being dragging, the thing is that that's how, all the bones in Unreal are displayed. The actual root bone is the one, if we select it and we go to details, we can see that it has information. It is changing, right? In the case of this one, it's not the case. We can see that we have a root that is damaged. It's right there at the center of the scene, and everything about the mobility of this character, the locomotion, is being carried by the pelvis. This is something that is hard to fix inside Unreal. It might need, if you really want to have something clean, and you have the ability of, going back to the retargeting process, you can fix it there for sure, right? And you're going to save yourself a little bit of issue. But because I'm very, bold and daring, I'm going to run with this animation, even though it is broken, right? So we can, find out what could be the issues and we can fix them in the end, right? Let's go back here. And here we can see that we also could have scale issues, and those are dangerous. Those are horrible inside Unreal, because it doesn't matter if you try to fix it through animation. It's not a great thing. It's not a great answer. So if you have scale issues with your character, you might want to simply, discard it and take it back to whatever DCC you need it to fix, and have everything, on a fixed scale, right? You are going to be able to see here in details, right? If we go to our skeletal mesh tab, and if you go to the skeleton tree, you should see that, it might need to be in the actual skeleton. Sorry about that. If you select all your bones, they should all have, one as scale. There might be some that have some, rounding error pretty near one. That's good enough, right? But for the most part, they all should be one. If you have an issue with this might be a deal breaker inside Unreal. It's very hard to work with animations when you have these kind of disparities, and that to me is a red flag that will have to send your character back, to the actual rigging and skin binding, right? Next, and almost lastly, you need to check for pops and hyperextensions. And this is the place, to start looking at those, because you're going to see pretty soon that you can also, you can play your animation. And at any point, if you really want to check it like really detailed, you can go up here and you can make it maybe a little bit slower. And you can go, all about the animation in slow motion, seeing that when you have those extensions, it's not hyperextending, and that you're not having like pops in places where the actual retargeting, the IK retargeting, might be creating those, hyperextensions that pop and then pop out. And things like, let me show you how those will look. Right, let me go here and go one speed. Let me go all the way up to somewhere around there. Now you're going to be able to see a pop right there where the IK was really broken. You can see that. Yeah, that's a pop for sure. And sometimes they will happen only in one frame. So you gotta be careful. You gotta be sure that you run it slow and you check your full capture, and you can see that, yeah, that thing is truly happening, right? So that's why, spending a little bit of time checking out your animation inside the animation editor, it's a good thing, and you should do that, right? So lastly, what you can also do is to start, sharing your animations. Maybe this animation is in this character, right? But maybe it's going to end up being into another character, and you want to start having your skeletons shared, all right? And that means that you can share compatible skeletons. I'm not going to be running too much out of this one, but if you want to have like more animations, right, on these characters, and we might want to use them, you can see that this queen character that comes from the counter rig content, doesn't have many animations, right? And we might need, more of those, right? To make sure that we, can start, adding and layering our animations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump very fast to my skeleton tab, and I'm going to be sure that I go Windows and I turn on my asset browse, my asset detail, sorry, asset details. And in the asset details, I'm going to have array of compatible skeletons. And this will only work, and I will only risk it is if I know that the actual character that I'm going to try to make it compatible is an actual, mannequin compatible rig, right? And I happen to have, an MCO Mocap Basic, right? And I have a ton of animations there, mostly, mobility types like running and stuff. And those are the ones that we're going to be layering upon our mocap, right? So be sure, to search for MCO and select the actual skeletons that the skeleton that appear there, right? And these you can see then in the actual path is the actual skeleton. The way you do this compatibility and sharing, you're going to add here the one that has the animations, right? And the one that doesn't have the animation is the one that will have to be compatible with the other one, right? Let's save it all, right, for now. And now we should have those animations. We're going to check on those later, but so it's already compatible, and we have those animations. Even though they might not show here, we might need to, maybe close, our animation and open it up again, animation, open it up. If you go down, you should see now we have those MOB. Those are the ones from the MCO mockup library. All right. Cool. Now, let's see what we can start fixing right over here, right? There are a couple of things that we are going to be able to fix right here in our animation editor, right? Many of those are going to be things that are actually systemic. So things like once we add our retargeting options here, we have this little bit of syncing of the feeds. This is the kind of things that we can fix right here because we already have a bunch of takes here. I have 4 takes in these captures, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 takes, right? So whatever we can fix here, it's going to be best. So let's go to our frame 0, and this is just a recommendation. Do all your fixings in the frame 0, because if you need to fix them again, it's a fixed frame, right? And you really don't want to animate inside here. You just want to do additive corrections, right? So I can see that we have an issue with the pelvis being too low. So that's what I'm going to fix. I'm going to grab the pelvis, turn to my translate gizmo, and I'm going to pull it up enough until I have a good footing, right, on my floor. And then if I want that to be maintained, throughout the whole animation, I need to create a key. And that's it. I have a key on the frame 0, right? And this is not very explicit. That's why I choose to do all my, corrections in frame 0. And now let's keep on checking what other issues we may have, right? So now we have a good footing, right? It's not under the ground, but I can see around maybe here that I have an issue with, and I can, put this a little bit slower, maybe 0.5. So we can run it while she starts running towards me. I have a little bit of, interpenetration between both feeds. It's simply we're going to have that issue. That's another thing that we can simply fix right here. Let's go back to our frame 0. We need to grab our thigh, right? And be sure that you're working on local, and we're going to open up just a tab. And if you have that issue right there, that you have the snapping options on, you might want to turn it off, right? And this is not about being, symmetric or something like that. This is going to be good enough if you simply put a little bit of an offset there and everything is going to be fine, right? So that's good. Frame 0, let's key it. Now let's select the other thigh. Let's give it a little bit more space. There is going to be fine. Let's key it. And now let's keep on, checking and see. All right, now it feels like we don't have that particular issue right there. I'm going to, yeah, that's good enough. Let me deselect the bone. That's it. Now we don't have that issue. It feels more natural. And I believe this is more than enough, right? There are a couple of other things that we can also start doing from here, but you're going to see that we're going to continue on the actual sequencer just because you're going to see. But let me just showcase that you can also, doing it from here if you want. You might want to always keep your original here, right? And I'm going to make a duplicate of it. And this one I'm going to call take 01, right? And now that I have take 01, this one will already have, the pelvis fix, right? And the wide stand that we just performed. And another thing that you can do here, it's right. Let's say that my take 1 will start here. I can right click on the, on the frame number, and I can remove from frame 0 to 1393. And now I'm going to have an animation that will start right there. And now I can, go a little bit further and see where it ends. And I can see that around here, yeah, this is the end. And now I can right click right here and I can remove from frame 345 to the end. And now I have a full take 1, right, in this particular animation. So this is a very cool way of doing this, mainly because you're not baking, you're not, compromising maybe the quality of your performance. You are doing simply this, in the actual animation editor, and that is going to be more than fine, right? Then you can save your take 1, and you can, you can continue, adding your take 2 and take 3. But this is why I'm not going to be using, this one. And that is because we have a wrong 0, right? The actual 0 of this animation is there. That might not be what you want. And there is a very easy way of fixing it inside here. And I can show you that in just a little example. So if you have an animation that have a good root, you can do it from here. So let me go to my MCO mocap. Let me go animation. Let me take any will do. Let's say that jog that we were talking about, right? And in fact, let me duplicate that jog. So I'm not going to break the wrong one, right? And let me show you what you can do. So let's say that you cut this animation here, right? You did this and you remove from 0 to 9. And now you have the issue that the actual transform, right? The pivot of this animation will be back there. Well, you can simply come here and you right click, and you have also the ability of re-zero this animation at frame 0. And now your actual pivot is going to be right there. And that is going to be a lot easier, to use it in your actual level, because the pivot is going to be right under, the start of the animation. Or maybe you want it to be at the end of the animation. That's also, a particularity that you may want, right? So that here is the way of, achieving that. Now, in the case of this animation, we have the issue that the root motion is wrong, and we're not going to be able to do that from here. So let's say that, yeah, this is as far as we are going to go with the animation editor. And now we are going to have to start dabbling into the sequencer, right? So let's see that we are covering everything. Yeah, that's good. So now we're going to do a little bit of adjustments and cleanups in the animation editor. We did, a couple of those systematic issues, right? And now we're going to use the FK control rig to fix others, right? So let's, these are going to fill up with information. If you want to download, the actual PDF and keep it, it has like step-by-steps of everything that we're going to be doing here. So if you review the actual class with the PDF, it's going to be wonderful, right? I will highly recommend it, right? How did the animation get exported? We didn't export it. We simply save a new one. We duplicated it. So I took this one and duplicated. So it's not really like exporting. So let's get rid of this one because again, we're going to make a much better job with sequencer. And we know that this one has at least already fixed the pelvis and the widening of the stand, right? So this is good. But now let's create our first, level sequencer right here. We're going to be double clicking on it. And now we are going to drop, and this is me being fast. You can, do it this way if you want. I'm going to drag this character, right? That is not a character, it's an animation. And I'm going to drop it right inside my sequencer. And that will bring the exact character that animation was created for, which is, a shortcut maybe. I know that I don't want to work with control break for now, right? So I'm going to get rid of it. And now if I want that exact animation to be there, I do it again. But in this time, instead of dropping it here, I'm going to drop it right here in the animation track. And now I will have exactly that full animation. And as you see, it is pretty long. It has 4 takes in it. And that's the thing that we're going to start working right here. That's going to be my my starting point, right? The sequencer right here. I'm going to save it as sequencer because this is going to be something very useful, but it's not something that is going to be of a lot of relevance, to keep this sequencer. This is just a place of work, right? This is today work that we are going to be doing right here, okay? So first of all is I need to get, if you hate this as I do, right? The fact that if you go back in your scrubbing and you pass the 0, your dude goes back to T-pose. You might want to go here where it says playback options. Be sure, playback options, the cog will be the play, and turn on keep playhead in playback range while scrubbing. This thing is, you're going to thank me, right? You turn this on, and now if you go forward and back, it won't go further than the actual, in and out. It's wonderful. Right. So first of all, I need to check out the actual 0 of my scene because that is going to be important for many things that we're going to be working today. And the easiest way of doing that is simply using like a basic, right? You go up here to your quickly add to the project. You go basic. Let's drop an actor. And be sure that it is 0 out. Now, this will give me that this, quadrant right here is the actual 0 of my scene, right? You want to check out that your actual floor is also, 0, 0, 0. And if you don't want to have a seizure, you might want also to go show and turn off the grid, right? Now you're not going to have that C fight in between the grid and the actual plane. And now we are going to be not having a seizure. All right, good. So enough rambling about, let's start cleaning up this animation, right? I'm going to do 3 takes really fast, right? So try to follow along. You are already, very savvy into sequencer. So this might not be too hard for you to follow along, right? So first of all, let's start where these animations start. It's around here. That is good. I can simply clip it, right? By dragging it by the ear, I grab the ear of the actual sequence and I'm going to start it there. Then I'm going to retime it until I get to 0. So I got right here the start of my animation, right? And now I'm going to have the actual end of the animation, and that is around there. That is going to be my out, right? I'm going to set my out around there. This is not, nuclear physics. It's just you still want to have a little bit, before and after if you really want, not to to like a too short of a work, right? And let's expand this just a tad until we get that final step. And that is good enough, right, for me. And now what I'm going to do is to center out this animation, because again, if we click on the actual animation, we can see that, yeah, the pivot keeps being at the center. That might not be what I want. And also she is walking crooked. She's walking not on a straight line. You can fix all those, right? So let's go back to our frame 0. And first of all, let's fix the actual, running orientation. And remember, what I got selected here is the actual actor, right? I'm not still, playing with anything, from the animation. I'm turning the actual actor, right? Now you can see that it's a little bit that way. So I wanted to start and end about, even though it might not be possible, I want to see how good I can make her run straight forward. That seems good enough, right? And now, while I'm at the 0 mark, I want to make sure I'm going to convert my tool into world. I want to make sure, and also I'm going to drop the snapping. I want to make sure that she is right there at the root of my scene. That's good. Now you can see that my animation will start there and end there. It's very good. It's straightforward. Now the actual pivot, when I bake this out, is going to be right under her, right? That's what I want. So I'm going to create my first take 1 recenter, right? So for that, I'm going to bake out this animation, right? I'm going to right click and I'm going to bake animation sequence, right? This is important. You're going to right click right on top of the actor, not on the animation or anything. And you're going to have the bake animation sequence option in the menu right there. Once you click it on, it's going to ask you for a place to save that animation. I'm going to save it right there in the animation folder. And this is going to be take 01 recentered. That is going to be good enough, right? So now I'm going to simply hit OK. But now, before we go and hit export to animation sequence, we gotta make sure that we record in world space. We're going to reset everything to default, and we're going to record to world space, and then we're going to export animation, right? Once that is done, let's test and see, how that looks, right? So for that, I can simply, take another, of these, and I'm going to also, add it to my, so that may have not worked as I wanted. I'm going to duplicate, because this character is spawnable, I'm going to simply duplicate it inside my sequencer, right? I'm going to simply hit Control D, and if Unreal doesn't explode, I should have, no, didn't work. Do I have another character here? Nope. All right, I'm going to do something smart, and that is to be sure that I have everything safe before I keep trying to duplicate. All right, now this time it really worked, right? And now in this second second character, I'm going to test that animation, right? So I'm going to delete that animation that I have right there. I may want to hide, the original one. And now on this one, I'm going to add that take 1, right? I'm going to click on animation, right? And I'm going to say take 1 center. Now, if I center, my character right there, she should be starting from, no, it's not. Oh, sorry about that. I was adding the wrong animation there. Now you should be 0, 0. That's right. Right. That's good. I won't do that again, right? It's too messy. But I just want to showcase you, how the actual output is going to be. So this is what I get at the end, an animation that is right under the pivot, right? And that I'm going to be able to, set whatever I want and turn however I want. And she is going to be running forward in the actual direction of the character. That's what we really want. This is a clean, the first start, of a good clean animation, right? Out of a mocap. Cool. That is amazing, right? Let me go back to my needling, right? So I have my character here. I'm going to reload that big animation, and that is the run stop animation. And I'm going to keep on cleaning it, right? I need at least 2 more of these, right? So I'm going to get back until I know that this is, let me just make sure. All right, let me go here. All right. Let me go to frame 0, and I'm going to see, right, this is take 1, right? And now here starts take 2, like around there. All right, that is good. Now let me see how far it should go, around there. That is good enough, right? I have this second capture right there. Let's do the work of making it run straight forward. A little bit more. That's it. It's mostly straight. That is good. All right, and now let's put this in global, put her right on top of the root of my world, and let's bake it out. Right click, bake to animation sequence. On my animations folder, this is going to be take _02 _center. Right? Good. Be sure that is in world space, export animation. That's it. Let's do take 3 because I will need her to be looking the other way around. You can see that the third take was watching over the other shoulder, right? That is good. Now in the 0, I'm going to start around there. And she's going to go turn the other way around and keep running. And this one does run a little bit further. So let's expand our timeline. And that's it. That is good enough. Let me put my in and out. I review it. She is already at the center there, almost. Let me just make sure it is right below her. And that's it. I'm going to bake my third take, and that is going to be all I'm going to need from that original animation, right? So let's go here, bake animation sequence, go to animations, and to take _03 _center. And that's right. That's all. Record to world space, export animation. That's it, right? Now, we're going to start creating additives, and we're going to start combining our animation. So we're going to start crafting, right, a final animation with our character. All right, so let's do that. All right. Look at that optimization. Yeah, exactly. So cool. Now let's do something. Let's get rid of this animation, right? Let's zero out our character again. So we know that we are starting from the actual 0. And before, I start putting this into context, into my, final, background or anything. I love to work this animation on their own because, this is a lot easier to work with, right? On a very controlled place, just a sun, a couple of things. So we're going to do that exercise like right here. So first of all, let's do a little bit of, so what we're going to start doing right now is what is called layering animations, right? And the first layering animation that I know is the actual trimming and slicing, right? So let's see how that works. So first of all, we don't want her to start running right after, right? We need her to be standing there, relaxed, right? So let's simply go to animations, and because we compatibilize, these animations with the MCO, I should be able to find relax. And I should have a stand, relax, idle, right? And I want the one that is not IPC. This is in place. I want the one that is root motion, right? So this one is going to be good. So it's the stand, relax, idle version 2 period, right? That's it. And this is what we get. We can see that we also have a little bit of an issue with this mocap capture. So this is a thing that we are going to start, fixing right here inside this particular sequence, right? So we're going to be planning our first motion. She is going to be, idling down, right? And then she's going to look back and start bolting forward, right? So how would I, do an actual look back on this character, right? It's fairly easy. Let's start using our friend. Before we start, going back into control and everything, I want to make sure that I'm not downgrading the quality of my mocap. Every time you bake into a control rig, you are downgrading the quality of your mocap slightly, but it's a possibility. So I want to play, nice and sure, right? So I'm going to, instead of right-clicking on my character, I want to go track, and I want to go control rig, and I want to add an FK control rig, and this is going to be enough, right, for me to work with. Right, good. But now it seems that it wants to take over, the actual bones, and that's not what I wanted to do. I want it to be an additive, right? And this is something that will only happen with the FK control rig. This won't happen with, the normal control rig. So you want to right-click on the actual track of the FK control rig, and you want to make sure you set it to additive, right? So now you can see that I have all the bones showing, right? And but I also have the actual animation under it, and that is good enough. So let's start fixing this, right? Before we start, making a little bit of animation, additive animation, I want to make sure that I, fix a little bit this pose because it's horrible. So first of all, let's grab our clavicles, right? And I want to make sure that they are a little bit up, right? And the same with this one. We're not going to even need an actual key for this to work, just the presence of the actual control rig. It's going to be Nita, sorry. Nita, go to the actual lecture note. Oh, you are, of course. Sorry, silly me. And TAs should be answering questions for you, not to worry. All right. All right, and let's now do a little bit, like that, shoulders out, and then, maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So now she should look a little bit better, right? So like that, maybe like that, like that. That's good enough, right? We could do also, a little bit of the relaxing of the actual arms, right? The upper arm should be this bone right here, and we can, put it around there and there. So that is, mainly good. Now we're going to have a better experience out of this mocap, right? But now let's see how we can make her, turn back, right? So for as long as this animation is running and the FK is, running also in additive mode, those offsets are going to be there. So that is, mainly fixed, right? So now she's idling there. Now we want her to look back. Well, let's create an additive section to our FK control rig right here. We're going to go sections and we're going to go additive. The cool thing about this additive is that it has a beginning and end, right? So we're going to be able to actually animate by just posing, right? And so let's see how we can do that. So first thing, if you want to select the bone right from the viewport and have it selected down here on the sequencer, you gotta make sure that the actual section that you're working with is the one on top. So to allow you to do that, you're going to very firmly and snappy, you're going to select your additive and pull it up until it's on top of your, absolute section, right? This might be a little bit, so at some point it might be like this, but you want it to be like this, right? Really on top of it, right? one short snap move up, right, of that additive section, and it should be around here, right? So now let's animate, right? Let me put myself, in this position. And now if I select the actual bones, I'm going to be selecting the bones on the additive, right? So I want her to be a little bit like maybe like that. Now I can select spine 3 and spine 4, just a tad, right? And I want her shoulders, right, to be a little bit more open, because she is going to be like scared by what she sees. She is surprised, like that. And also I want to select, neck, turn just a tad, then select, the next neck. That should be this one. Now with this one, I can really, look back and up, just like around there. This is what I want, right? And maybe I will need a little bit more of this and maybe a little bit more of that. And again, I'm not even setting keys, just the presence, right, of this additive is going to be more than enough, right? But now how I do the actual animation, right? Well, if you select your additive track, you can see that on the top of the ear of your track, there is an arrow. And if you track that arrow, you can create an actual twin. Is how it's called, twin? It should be a blending, right? Now you can see that she's going to be looking, forwards, and then she's going to look back. And at some point, you also want it to go the other way. So we're going to grab that. So this one might be, all right, now it shows, right? And at some point, she's going to let go of that additive, right? That's what we want. And the good thing about this is that we can time it. How long do you want that, turn back to be? That might be too long. So let me put it a little bit shorter. It's there, turn back, turn forward. All right, that seems, good enough, right? Cool. So now we have an additive, right, on top of our absolute that was only used to fix, the actual arms of this animation. And let's see. So we start, she looks back and then looks forward, and she's going to bolt it, right, at that point, right? So let me put this around there, and that's it, right? So now we are 4 minutes. So I'm going to simply do the next move, and then we're going to take 10 minutes rest, right, to continue with the class. So the next move is going to be my take 1, right? So let's do it. So now here in the actual animation track, not another animation track, be sure that is in the same one. I'm going to hit animation, and I'm going to search for take 1 centered, and that's it, right? And as you can see, it's going to start right there because we took the time of recentering. So that was pretty smart in it. All right, and that's it. Now we can see that the actual, it will change the posture, but it doesn't matter because we really want it from around where she's start bolting forward, right? So we're going to grab the little ear of that animation and trim it. That's why it's called trimming and overlapping, right? Because now you can see that she's there, and then she's going to be boop, bolting. But we can do a tad of overlapping, like this, and you're going to see that we're going to have that and then going forward. All right, so this is the kind of stuff that you are going to be finding when you have the actual pelvis driving, the actual position. So we're going to find a way also, to fix this, all right, pretty soon. So let's make it until, it feels, nice, the actual change, and that's it, right? There it is. So good. Let's check how it looks. She's going to be idling, look back, and then bolting. That is good. Look back and bolting forward. Then she's going to turn back again and look forward. And that is what we have until now. So when we get back, we're going to be fixing a little bit of this swaying around that we have here. And you guessed it, we're going to do it with additive animation right there. Don't you worry, it's going to work fine, fine, fine. the actual, let me take these 2 minutes that we have left before the actual break to explain what we're doing right here. We are simply adding animations, right? We're taking everything that we're going to use on our final animation and we're blending it together. We're going to have to bake this whole thing at some point into a new animation asset, animation sequence, and then we're going to bake it up to, control rig and start cleaning everything about it, right? But for now, we're just constructing. We're blocking up, everything about our animation. Okay, so that takes us exactly to the half of our class. So we're going to take 10 minutes, right? It's what is fashion around here these days.
Yeah, 10 minutes is fine.
All
And we'll
right.
see everybody then. We'll go ahead and switch over to our
Oh,
screen.
yep. Let me go here.
There we
And
go.
yeah. All right. Be right back. All right. All right. All right. So let's all right. We are good here. Let's go back to our example and let's keep on working on these, right? I'm not going to do the best job here. I just want you to know that, stacking, different or many or as many, sections as you want is completely possible. And keep on fixing issues. Like we have a little side step there, like there, and we might want to avoid that. Well, let's fix it, right? We start from going here to our section in the FK control brick, and we're going to add a new additive, right? Let's pull it up gracefully and with just one big push up. Right, that is working. And I know this one, it's going to be just from there to actually when, this thing ends up here, because now by here, we don't have that issue. We have a whoop, right? So let's play it simple. It's going to be just, creating a key. And in this case, I'm going to do that on the actual pelvis, right? If I there it is. We have our pelvis. And we're going to set an initial key. We're going to go to the middle, right? And this is a thing that we can do. We can keep dropping more of those basics to mark things, right? I'm going to grab an empty actor and put it there. And I want to make sure that it's right there, right? On the tip of this foot, right? And now that is just going to be reference, right? So now I have my pelvis selected, and I can see halfway, about there. I'm going to grab her and pull her back right where she needed to be, and then put a key, then move forward, and I can see that I have a maximum there, right? So it might have to be a little bit there, right? And let's grab our pelvis, and I lost my, here it is. That is not the pelvis, or maybe it is, right? It doesn't matter. Let me put it there. Right, there it is. So now it's a little bit better. Now you can see that up to that point, I'm going to be losing that fix. So what I'm going to do is simply drag this, all the way to the end until that animation it's done, right? That running animation is done. Now you can see that it's not that. I don't care if I get issues with the fit, because fits are easy with once we have IK. I don't want it to be too noticeable in the actual body. And it is, but yeah, cut me a little bit of slack just in the sense of to save a little bit of time so we can continue. So this, I believe, is good enough, right? So I'm going to make an actual clip out of this, right? I can see that she's looking back and then she's start running forward, and I don't want to overcomplicate, this thing. Oh, there is one thing that we can, I'm going to save that for last, right? I'm going to keep on adding animations to this, right? So I want now to do a little bit of, I'm not going to bake it, I'm going to risk it to save a little bit of time. Now I want to bring my take 3, right? The one where she looks, the other way, right? And I want to mix it with this animation, right? That's what I want to do, right? So let's go and on animation, I'm going to, close my FK control rig right there. And I'm going to save everything just to make sure and go animation. And I'm going to add my take 3. And that's good, right? And I know that I want these to, actually start working once she's, she looks back and keeps going forward. I want this one for her to keep going forward and then look the other way around, right? That's what I want to do with this. And so I'm going to cut this up to there. And you can see that she's going to come to a time where she starts bolting again. And then these ones should be already bolting, right? So first, let's check out our feet, right? Our feet is our right foot right there, right? And I want the other foot to be right on top of the other one. So that will give me a good reference on what I want, right? So about there. So there, that's good. So now I know that from this animation, I want to have right foot down and the other foot almost, in this position. All right, this is going to be a good mix. Now I want to put it in the same track, just like that. But now you can see that we have the actual issue of the character, returning to the center, because yeah, the center of all of our animations were, that point right there. That might not be what we want. So here is where we start using what is called, we're going to right click and we can go to the match these bone in previous clip, right? And we know that, right foot down was good here and right foot down is almost good here. So let's try that one and see how it goes, right? So I'm going to go to the exact point where, these two connect, and I'm going to right click, go to match these, match with this bone in previous clip, and I'm going to search for foot, and I'm going to choose foot R, right? Now you can see that my character is going to run, and at some point it's going to click on the next animation and continue running forward. Using that match with bone is an amazing way of not having to animate your transform, but actually moving the actual root of the character. And as you can see, it was mostly successful. We do have a little bit of a electricity shock right there, with the arms and everything, but that's the kind of things that I would then deanimate and let Unreal do the actual interpolation, right? And we're going to start working with that pretty soon. And now you can see from start to end, right? She is there minding her own business. She looks back, she sees something, she bolts it, and then she turns back, and then she bolts a little bit more, and then she turns back the other way around and keeps on, running forward, right? So yeah, that is mainly what we are doing here. I want to make sure that this additive that I did there works the whole way down. And that's it. This is what I wanted out of this, right? So we still have time. So I'm going to risk it for the biscuit and show you one more way of, and this was already discussed, so I'm going to really fly by this thing, right? But I want you to, be sure to know that this thing exists, right? So what if we are in a position where we say, all right, this look back is good, but I think the look back in take 2 was a little bit better, right? But yeah, it's going to be impossible to match everything, but I might want to match, the upper body from take 2 and mix it with the lower body of take 1. You might say, you are crazy, Gabriel. That's impossible, but it is completely possible. And let me show you how. First of all, let's save everything, play it cool and nice. And to allow me, the way to do this is by using an animation blueprint. right? Don't be scared. It's just an animation blueprint with 2 nodes. That's all we're going to use, right? So let me just show you something. If you select any of the animations that you drop into your sequencer and you go to properties, you're going to see that they all fall into this slot name called default slot, right? And we're going to use these in our advantage, right? So let's see how we're going to manage that, right? So let's open this and open our content browser. And we're going back to where our character is, that is in control rig, characters, mannequins, meshes, right? And right here on any of these, we can right click and go create. And we should be able to create an animation blueprint, right? And now that we have an animation blueprint here, I'm going to move it right to our animation. So we have everything in one place. And that's it. So this is an animation, an empty animation blueprint for this character, right? So let's see what we need to do to actually do a split up of the body. And it's already there, so it's going to be really easy to do. So let's double click on it and see what we get, right? So this is it, right? So where is that original? What we want out of this is to be like a bypass. We want to have the actual, and you can see it here. And if it's not on your side, all right, the animation slot, be sure to go here to Windows and open up your animation slot manager and dock it somewhere, because this is what we're going to be using. And you can see that we already have a bunch of different slots. We have the actual default slots, and we have also, the upper body, and these are just names. All right, there is no mask involved up to this point. These are just names that are there for our convenience, right? But we know that the actual default slot is the one that carries on, the actual animation, right? The window was opened by double clicking on the animation blueprint that we just created, right? And so we need to call for this upper body slot. So let's simply, sorry, for the default slot. So let's right click on an empty spot in our animation blueprint and search for default slot. And here it is, slot, default slot. So this is good. If we connect these to that, it's going to be doing exactly the same as always do, right? Because yeah, when we add a new animation to our sequencer, it's always attached, to this default slot. So these will do nothing. So we need another one of these. So we're going to simply select it and duplicate it with Control D. And now we're going to change this default slot up here in the details to be not the default slot, but the upper body. And that's it. We are almost ready. Now, the only thing that we need is to do the actual mask, right? And the mask, we're going to do it with the layer per bone, right? And you're going to have here blends, layer blend per bone. This is the last node that we're going to use. And this is it. What this will do is to actually blend this two animation with a mask, right? There is going to be a point where we can say, right, I want the default slot to run from, the root up to maybe a spine 2, right? And then we want from the spine 2 above to run whatever we connect to this new upper body slot. So let's do this. This is going to be base pose. This is going to be blend pose 0, and this is going to be connected to our output, and we're almost done. We need to do 2 more things. One is to actually select our node for the layer per bone mixing. We're going layer setup, index, and we're going to create a new index here, and that is going to open up this bone name and blend depth. And we're going to select simply, just because I know it's going to be the spine, everything lowercase, _ 02. That's it. That's all we need to do, right? This should already be working, but we're going to do one last thing, right? And that is to add blending, right, to this particular thing, because we want to control when this happens, right? And to do that, we're going to grab this socket right here, and we're going to extend it and promote it to a variable. Once we get that variable, we're going to do exposed to cinematics to have control over it, right? In our sequencer. That's it. That's all we need to do, right? Let's save. Let's save everything and let's close it. This is done. This is done deal. This is going to start working here very soon. So first thing is we're going to need to actually add, our take 2 on top of take 1, right? So let's do that. Let's go animation. Let's search for take 02, center. That is good. Now you can see that I will set it on top, just because. And now I can see the actual spot where our character looks back, and I want to match it when this character also looks back, and it's a rounder. And you can see that this one is a little bit better. It's, I don't know, it has a better performance, whatever. So now what we want to do is to actually mix this with because if we leave it like it is, it's going to be very, it's horrible, right? So let's make it work. So first thing is we need to actually assign this animation to the next animation slot, right? So we right click on our take 2, go to properties, and where it says default slot, we're going to be using, and this is capitalized, right? Upper body slot, right? If I believe this is right, it's the upper body slot, right? The one that we're going to be using. And that's it. Hit enter. And now nothing is going to work right now. And that is because our actual character is not implementing the actual blueprint, animation blueprint that we created, right? So let's name it so we know what this is. I'm going to name our animation blueprint to be upper body. That's it, right? So we're going to implement it in the animation mode, right? And if we search, to be a blueprint, and we can choose, the actual upper body, right? And just to make sure that it will stay this way, I'm going to add a key to the actual use animation blueprint, right? Like this. And that's it. Now you're going to be able to see that this character is going to be running forward. Don't mind that thing down there, and it's going to look back, right? And you know what? It's applying, it's reading the actual animation blueprint, but it's not applying this. So I wonder if I mistakenly, it's called upper body without the slot. My mistake. So the actual slot is called upper body without the slot at the end. So let's fix that in the actual take 2 center properties. And instead of upper body slot, is just upper body. And now she is going to be running, and now she's going to look back using, this animation from the waist up, right? And you can see the actual difference if I unactive, this animation. You can see that it's a little bit different than this one. So this one does that thing back there, right? Now, one last thing is that now if you see, she's going to be running with her arms, open, because now she's implementing, this upper body, but yeah, it's just reading from, spine to down. And so we might want to animate that, we want to animate the particular variable that we created, right? So let's get to that one. So we need, and this, again, this is just a showcase, so it's possible you're going to be able to follow along with the recording. So I'm going to track, and I need the actual anime instance, right? That is running the actual animation blueprint, right? And this is where I'm not going to be sure if this is what I wanted. Sorry, track. Animation. It should be this one, if I'm not mistaken. there should be an upper body here somewhere. Am I right? If I search for it, upper, nope, not in animation, not in animation. No, it's not there. Give me just a second. It will come to me. I will think is animation mode. Oh, all right. I see what is happening. Sorry about this. Sometimes my sequencer start doing this weird thing where I create tracks and they don't show. So that's not very, very good. All right, this is here. All right, it's not this one. Give me just a second. It will come to me. All right, it should be this one. Nope. Give me just a second. Come on. Where are you? Too many things already here. Animation rig is not in clothing collision, the former animation class. Is it this one? Oh yeah, no, the animation class is the upper body. That's good. But we want the animation mode. I already have it. Sorry. Oh my God. I can't believe that this is failing me. For some reason, maybe I need to be, once I have this key there, and then it will. Track. Maybe someone is already telling me it's exposed, but I can't find the actual post-processing. Maybe it's all the way down here somewhere. I know it. Skeletal mesh. All right, I'm not going to spend more time looking for these. If anything, I'm going to simply, add like another video to the class so you can check it out. But yeah, all right. So it's all right. It's okay. Not to worry. I'm going to simply not use, this one because we're going to have her running like silly, like this, right? But it's all right. There is a way to actually have that expose variable that we have here that is already exposed to cinematics, and we should be able to, turn it on and off at will. But lately we have so many things here to track in our mesh component that I don't know why, this upper body C is not there for some reason. It says that it's config ledger instance for some reason, and it's not. This is what I want. I want to access this one. Yeah, sorry. Very, very, very sorry about this. I'm simply going to, not do this. I was thinking not to doing it. And now that I see the mess that I made, I will, think twice before doing this again. All right. That is good. Let's continue. We still have a lot to do. I'm going to disable the actual animation class here, right? I'm going to make this custom mode again, and all right, let me assign this a none, right? And Unreal is going to crash. That is going to be wonderful. Come on. All right. Are you in custom mode? Everything is fine. Everything is fine. We're going to be fine, everybody. All right, let's do that thing that we came here for, and that is to use control rig, all right? And we're going to start using control rig to make our animation, a little bit cleaner, right? Because we do have a couple of issues, with the foot and with everything. So before we go and, bake this to a control rig, I want to make sure that we have a good bake out to an animation sequence right out of this, right? So let's do it. Let's right click on our character and let's go and bake this as an actual animation sequence. And let's go animation. And this is going to be our, clean first pass. Right? This is our blocking stage already clean. And we're going to hit OK, and we're going to record it into, world space, right? Because, she is right there in the center of the scene. And that's it. So for now, this sequencer is done. I will take this sequencer, close it up, and open, a new one, because that way, I can keep on working on this one if I want. But this one is going to be, us taking our art, to a new stage, right? So we are getting this clean first pass, and I'm going to drop her inside my sequencer, delete the control rig, and now we are going to be adding again the animation, right? And this is going to be the exact animation that we just, developed. I want to make sure that it starts right there. That's it. Let's make it as long as we need, like this. And this is it, but this is what we got, right? We have her, hanging there. She starts running, and then she goes back, and then she goes forth, and we have a bit of an issue there. But all right, that is never a good thing. Thanks. We're going to be fixing, all that stuff, right? Not to worry. So let's fix that horrible thing back there, like right now. And that is going to be by actually, for the first time in this class, right-clicking and baking our animation to our control rig. And we're going to be using, the normal CR mannequin body. And we're going to reset everything to default. And we're going to hit create. And that's it. And now we can see that we do have that animation baked. And I now don't see that issue. Oh, yeah, there it is. So I call this step de-animating instead of animating. My first pass with control rig is not adding more keys, is really, removing keys, right? Like, for example, this one, right? This is a key that I would want to be reinterpolated by Unreal. For some reason, our character went back, to T-pose at the center. And that is what this key is doing. So I'm simply going to select that key and delete it. Now you can run through your animation and you can see that, yeah, we have a little bit of issue there. But yeah, for the most part is fixed. So we're going to start de-animating a lot in this first step, right? That will involve, things like everything that has to do with the feet, right? To have them always, very well planted and not do that, right? Fits are easy, right? Let me show you how we can fix those issues there, right? So first of all, I want to make sure I want to go back to my start and I want to select, my IK control for the foot. And I want to make sure that the space is not parent. I want it out, completely out of the hierarchy, right? And that is because we have a lot of issues. If you look at the root, we're going to be always finding that feed, because did you see the root there doing that? Well, the actual foot is doing the contrary to compensate for that. And so we don't want that. We want, and a little bit further, you're going to see that root like snap again forward. And that is what the actual a match motion with previous bone does, right? Like moves the actual root. So if we want to play nice and easy, we're going to simply go to our first, frame 0, select the foot, and change the actual parent chain to world, right? This might take a little bit because it's like rebaking the whole movement of this foot outside now of the actual root. And we can check it out. It should be exactly, the same, wrong, but now it's outside of the actual hierarchy of that, nasty movement there. And we're going to do the exact same with the other foot, right? We're going to switch it to world, and that's it. Now we can start de-animating, right? So we can, select our left foot, and this is going to be a short example to show you, how we can do this. Now you can see that, yeah, it moves and starts, doing that thing there. Well, what I really want is to go really near and say, all right, I want that foot planted, all right, until, we start, moving forward, right? So from here, I'm going to delete this next key, right? And I'm going to look for a point where I can see that little cross, and I will start, deleting, the actual foot movement from there, all right? And you can see that now it's, because when you bake, everything turns to linear. Now it's interpolating between that movement and that one back there. And I know that around here, it will start moving forward like that. Well, I want it from here to almost there, right? So I missed this last one. I'm going to delete this one also. And I'm going to select this key, hold down Alt and drag it forward. And that is really having copy of that start. And about here, I want it to start interpolating until, it gets up there, right? So I can, take this one and deanimate. And now you can see that I have a good planted foot until, it goes forward and start bolting, right? Conveniently, this ball of the foot control is the one right under the IK of the foot. So I can also deanimate it, as long as I need it, right? So I won't need that, and I won't need that until, there. You can see that now it's very well hold until, it will simply start going, right? And now again, it's animating. So I might need to take this one, Alt, drag, copy that feet right there, and go forward. Now we have an hyperextension because the actual, foot is being asked to be moved a little bit forward, right? See there, we have that snapping there. So we can fix that, many ways. Like we could simply fake it, right? We could, maybe take, this is her pose, from the start. I can delete all those, and I can simply plant that foot a little bit forward, right? Maybe it should be around there. And you can start, playing with, I'm going to set auto key, right, for this, because I already have all those keys. And I can, maybe plant that foot a little bit forward. And that way it's not going to hyperextend too much. Maybe I can move this and start, doing that interpolation a little bit further, earlier. So yeah, before you start creating keys, the best thing to do is to simply remove all those keys, right? So you might want to, once you have, for example, your foot well planted and animating, right? It's nice. We don't have any jiggling like the other foot right there. And now we have that. Now it's the point where you want to maybe, start animating, right here, right? You want to maybe, at this point, have it to be like this, right? And you're going to see that now we do have that motion there. And we're going to do the same with the ball of the foot, right? We want to have a key there. And then when it's like that, it should be somewhere like this, right? And there it is. Tick, 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 tick. And maybe this should hold on a little bit further, right? All right, now we also have a little bit of a left movement. And I'm going to show you something very important, to do this kind of work. And that is to show your trails, right? Trails are awesome, right? For these kind of things, because you can animate even without seeing your stuff. Like you can see how, this trail will show you exactly where that foot was in all of those. And again, trails are up here in your animation menu, right? And you just need to show trails, and that is going to show the actual trail of that control that you have selected. And nice thing of all is that you can, select it, and you should be able to even modify it. Not like that. That was horrible. Maybe this one, right? And you can actually modify it, live. Would you move a little bit to the left? All right. Never you mind. I can go up to there and then move the actual control maybe, and that might be safer at this point. And you can see the actual curve, that the actual foot is describing. So you can see that now it's there, there, and now it ends up to be in, around there. And you might want to keep on, de-animating a little bit in front of it. And maybe that was completely wrong, but you get, what I mean by actually looking at your trails. You're going to be able to watch things like those wobbly motions right there. You can see how many of those you need to remove. So you can see, all right, let's say that let's fix this right foot like pretty fast, right? So we do have our right foot down there, and we want to remove that, trembling there, right? Until, it does a good movement. So I'm going to start that foot exactly, here. So I know that I don't need anything below that. So yeah, delete that one and that one. And then you can actually delete. Yeah, you can come here. And if you don't get enough clipping of your camera, you can simply search for near in your command clip, and there is going to show the r.set near clip plane, and you can set that to be 1 centimeter, and you're going to get a little bit more of a detail there. And you can see how much of that you can really get rid of. Like, I don't want that one, I don't want that one, and I don't want that one. I'm going to start right from there. And now you can see that the actual, trembling of the foot should not be there. And we start from there, and you can keep on cleaning, in that fashion, right? So that would be my next step, right? Simply to de-animate enough until you, keep your foot real good, right? Until, it's needed. And that's it. We're going to add a little bit more of animation at the end, but I want to jump to, let's go here and check it out. So yeah, this is what we were talking about, the animation slots, the trimming and overlapping, the matching bones. So those were the 3 ways of, layer blending our animation, or additive blending our animations. Then we bake to control rig. That is good. And we went, this is the whole workflow. If you want to, I should add, in the actual animation slot, actually take the, put there the actual name that I was not able to find. All right. So layering sections, we have not do layering sections in our control rig, but we will. And yeah, bake animations to sequence. We already done that, and we're going to do it again once we finish up the de-animation, and then we're going to start animating on top of that. All right. And that's it. Let's talk a little bit before we end this class about the curve editor, right? Because there are a couple of things that we can do to ease our work, at modifying our animations. This is the thing. Many people were going to go all the way, and start reducing, your whole, reducing all your keys. And that might be good in some places, on some occasions. But when you're talking about mocap, you really want to get, the full experience of what you capture. So I wouldn't go and, destroy all our curves, that way. I will keep them as long as I can and fight a little bit, those steps there, keep the animating, on each food, right? Maybe the food is not that bad. So maybe this food is a good example on how we can start using our curve editor to fix maybe the actual position of this food, right? Without having to simplify too much. You can see that the actual, step is not that bad. It simply is too high, right? So we could go and create an additive of it, but let's see if we can fix it from the actual curve editor. So let's select the food IK, right? And let's fire up our animation, our curve editor, right? And what we want, because we know it, is the actual location in C, right? And this is what we can see right here. It might not be getting to 0. It might be staying like too high. And that's why, it comes up to there and steps and stays there. So what you can do is,
Hey, Gabriel,
let's use,
everyone's saying that you can't see your screen.
yeah, you're right. Sorry. I really wish someone to, yeah, I'm getting nervous now. So yeah, if you can interrupt me before that, it's going to be wonderful. All right, let's take it back just a tad. Let me just go back here so I can show you the actual transform tool. This is the first one that we're going to use. And here you can see that we also have, we have a good foot down, but it's too up. So what we're going to do is select our IK control rig. Let's go to our curve editor and we can really experience it here. Like this is what is happening. The actual foot is not, having a contact on 0. But if we grab this one, it's going to be just, fixed for that frame. So that's why we could use this transform tool. So the transform tool will give us like a frame of work. So we're going to make like a big frame of work. Like this is all we're going to need. And then you can play with things like this, right? We can, expand and contract the whole selection. And the good thing is that we can also, place our anchor, of that particular deformation exactly where we want it. So we want it to be up there. And now we can make the whole curve, right? And we can go this, this way to really check out that we have, that contact. And that contact should be there. Now, there is another thing that you can do to not, deform too much your actual dump here, right? We can also press Control, and these will give us the actual an actual gradient control on where you want more of that edit to happen, right? So now I want it right there. Now I'm going to drag it down, and you can see how the actual shape of our curve, remains the same. I'm just, massaging the whole curve until it gets to a nice place where it hits the ground, right? And then I can simply, go back to my selection and I can, check it out and see how it looks. Now it will put her feet down like that. And that's it. Now you can see that it also, start raising up too early. We want that to remain down there a little bit more. So yeah, this is where we can also, select all of these, right? And now we can use the other one that is our multi-select tool, right? And the good thing about this one is that you can select a pivot to be our first key. And now we can flat it out, right? Like this, because we know that her feet should be flat down at that position, right? And then at that point, it should start rising up, right? But we can flat it out as much as we, need it, right? So we may want to have a little bit of that and start raising up, right? Because we're using the ball of the foot, right? To rise up, right? And we can, place it exactly where we need it. Now we're going to have a good contact and then a good rise up, right? Just by using, the transform tool and the multi-select tool, right? So those are really the best uses of those two tools. It will allow you to massage like big chunks of, of keys. Before you go and, destroy it with the simplify key, I think the simplify key is good if at some point you want to reanimate on top of an arm or something like that. Yeah, simplify it and then, go on top of it, making, the best out of it. But for, this kind of stuff, you can manage, your way out of that one, right? So the last one that I want to talk about is the actual retime tool. So let me show you how that will work. So we know that at the beginning, she is like maybe the actual timing of our animation is like too slow there. We want to make it a little bit more compressed at the beginning and a little bit more, faster. Well, what we can do is and for these, we're going to be selecting our whole mannequin control rig, right? Everything. And now we can select all those keys, right? And we can go to our retiming tool. And for some reason, it took that. It's right. Let me release that. I'm selecting this Unreal. If I go to my retiming, all right, it chooses that one. It's all right. We can create more of these ones by using the double click on the graph, right? That's what we want. So we want to come here and double click here. And that will create a start. And now I can, delete this one. We're not going to use that one. And I want to double click there where we want to have the other place, right? And now we want to compress this whole animation a little bit to the right. So I'm going to grab it by the handle and drag it, forward. And that should be, and yeah, that's it. So now we should have a faster animation, right? Happening at that point. And then it's going to engage with this one, right? So we save a couple of seconds there. Now you see it's a little bit faster. And you can keep going, right? Maybe the actual turn back is good at that speed, but then, from the forward, here is too long. I'm going to double click here, delete this one. And now I can see that I might need to actually make this one a little bit shorter, right? So from here to there, to the actual start of the running, I'm going to double click there, delete this one. I'm going to, let me also make an anchor around there. And I'm going to compress, this one a little bit more further. And all right, that seems to be good. Now, once we start playing with time, there is a big issue, and that is that our keys might start looking a little bit funky. So you may want to switch everything that you retime. You don't want to have it on linear. You might want to switch it to auto, right? Because at that point, you're going to start having like a small breaches in your animation. It's not going to be like one frame, one key per frame. So you might want to switch everything, to cubic interpolation, and that will fix that issue right there. But now you can see that she should be, oh, all right, that last movement there was not good enough. All right, yeah, something really wrong happened there. But now let's see, it's still bad. I think I moved this whole left foot forward. Oh yeah. Oh well, I promise you that I wasn't going to do a nice job out of this one. I really want to show, the actual workflow out of this, right? No, I don't have any more undos, but that's right. I'm going to go as far as I can go, and that is this one. Let's see if this fixes it. And no, well, that is good. Right. So that is mainly it. We have a couple other things to talk about, like the actual reduce and the filters. But we can take it to the lab, and maybe we can talk a little bit about those there. So there are a couple of those. We still have a minute. I'm just going to mention there So you know where they are. And I know that maybe in the fellowship, they have, being talked about. And those are, the bake, the Euler, the Fourier transform, and the simplify. The simplify will, simply remove keys, right? And you're going to have to dial down the actual tolerance. It's going to be really different. It's going to be really different depending if it is a movement or a rotation, right? Because yeah, they're not going to be normalized that way. So you don't want to select everything in terms of scale, in location and rotation, and apply the same tolerance to both. So this is one that you need to have a little bit of care with that one. The Euler is something that nowadays I can show you in the actual lab that it doesn't happen too much. Like the actual baker from Unreal is really good. It avoids a lot, the issues with the Euler. But what we can create one of those issues, or if you have one of those issues, we can, test it there. Bake will simply, rebake whatever you simplify. And the Fourier is something that will, remove a little bit of jittering, right? Out of your keys. And we might go and do a little bit of that as a test in our lab. So we just made it to the end of our class. I know it's a mouthful. It was maybe too much at some point. I will, I hope that you learn at least a little bit about, how to blend your animation, the actual ordering on how to do it. And yeah, that's it.